has always been in the people. Don't forget it.
Welcome to Sovereign Space Podcast. This is Lindsey Lamb. I'm here with my co-host,
Raymundo.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us for this episode. Excited for this conversation. Today we're going to talk about lawful money.
Finally.
This subject is an important one. It definitely is very important to Raymundo. And it is something that affects, or money anyway, affects us all. And why do we need to know about this? We'll be talking about that in this episode. What is lawful money? We are also going to talk about the history of money, the history of us as a people a little bit around money.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Okay.
Ray, why don't you kick us off with a little bit of the history about money?
Money. Well, it all started in the event of the Monopoly game. And the little guy came down with a little monocle and gave us money.
Magic.
No, that's not true. You know, money's obviously a captivating thing now. We have industries just about money and just about the growth of money. And, you know, it's a part of everybody's life. We are constantly worrying about it and making sure we have enough. And long ago, or maybe not too long ago, the worry about having enough money was probably not very apparent. Because money has historically always been an intermediary where it's simply used to get the things we want in exchange for the things we have. So, you know, we have the ability to do labor. So we might do labor to get some money to get things we want. There have obviously been situations where you can skip the money part altogether and exchange what you have for what somebody else wants. But to increase the options, I guess, to provide people with a greater selection of goods and services and opportunities, the more universal that money is, the more universal our ability to get things is. We can get things from far places for an easy, much easier negotiation. You know, we don't have to put our agent on a ship and have them sail across the world to talk to a silk trader. You know, the silk traders come to the store and provide the stuff, and we just exchange our currency. And that money has been many different things. Different societies and cultures have used different things for money. A long time in South America, Central America, coffee beans were used as a currency. You know, anything a society, a community accepts as being a currency will work. And so, you know, naturally, gold and, you know, rare minerals are things that people all accept as being valuable or rare enough that it can be relied on to exchange goods. And it's not something you can create very easily. I mean, you got to actually mine it out and find it to get more of it, to get more quantities of gold in circulation. You know, as an individual, you can do more, sell more, make things happen to gain more gold. But, you know, when it's a mineral back thing, it's reliable and it's equitable, because you can take that and go other places and get stuff, not just the same spot of where you got it. And gold has been the most reliable. And I think if we look back at history, we would say that in the nearest times of history, that gold is the equitable type of money. And in fact, per the Constitution, gold and silver were established as being lawful money. That was the money that could be used to pay debts. So now we have a situation where we have something that's not equitable. We have some money that is not backed by gold. And we have a money that can be kind of just created because of a desire. You don't have to mine it. You don't have to create a company to get more of it or create more of it. You just have to ask for it.
Okay. It's a good foundation for the history of money. Thank you for giving us that. Now let's really talk about lawful money.
Right.
This is a newer subject in the last couple years of my own research, understanding, and learning about it. I think for me personally, throughout my life, money had just been another part of the system overall that I take part in because that's the system before us. And so to ask these questions or to understand, like, wait a minute, there is something called lawful money. Well, is that different than something else? And if so, what type of money am I using or earning? And what's the difference, and how do we understand these qualities of the difference between, say, fiat and lawful money?
Yeah, I mean, the money we have now is fiat. And it's fiat. The definition of fiat is simply of the law. It means that there is a law written to say that this kind of money is going to be used as currency. A law created it. Legislation created it. People created it. People did not create gold. People did not create silver. People did not create coffee beans.
Okay, so in this example then, we're talking about, say, a creator created those minerals, or Earth created those resources. And that when a human creates something, there is this layer of artificial.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, that's the first kind of step into the fake, into the artificial, is to use something that is a derivative of what is real.
Right, and that's because I'm just trying to paint this picture here. We've got the creator or Earth, or the creator who created Earth. Then these minerals were available. Anytime a human then creates something, it's artificial because it's not originating from the original source. And so in this case of money, fiat would be that.
Definitely. But even before the fiat, even before 1934, we still had paper money. Like, we still had notes. We had silver notes. We had Lincoln created greenbacks. Like, there was paper money, and we have evidence of, treasury notes, U.S. notes that were used in circulation as money. And so that isn't a derivative, but again, the fact that it is not the original thing, the fact that it is a simple single derivative, means it's in the world of fake. It's in the world of make-believe. And that means it can be twisted and perverted into so many things, simply because it's no longer the real thing. And then you can see from that, if that money's already, the paper money is already a derivative, the growth of that money is another derivative. And the financial system, how much money is being wagered effectively on the growth of this fake money. And it's an entire financial system. And it's so big and massive, it's hard to see how fake it is. When big constructs and organizations are in operation and they're performing and they're doing the things that they intended to do, it's very difficult to see that it's all completely of a fake nature. And that is the difficult challenge. Like right now, I think we talk about consciousness, we talk about an awakening, we talk about people having power again. We definitely all need to get right about the kind of money we're using. And, it's not necessarily a run into the forest, get away from it kind of thing. It's an understanding. It's an awareness, because we can still use this system in a very amazing way. When you read the law and read how things are actually supposed to be, it's actually a good thing for people. There's just a couple mechanisms that are in the way. And those mechanisms were installed when the fiat was created, when they established Federal Reserve notes as the money.
Can we talk a little bit about that establishment and how and why would this?
Why would we do that? Why would we go to fiat money?
Yeah, why would that transpire?
Well, I think the very obvious, easy answer is that anytime things get moved into a fiat fake nature, a storytelling nature, it is to deceive the masses. It is to control the masses. But the story that they used, because the fiat money, Federal Reserve notes, was created in 1933, March 6th, I think, where they wrote into law. They took it's called the banking holiday. I think it fell on a Monday. All the banks were closed as a celebration holiday, when in reality, the entire foundation of how they do business changed. But they wrote law that anytime a bank comes into possession of a note, any note, the bank can take that note to the Federal Reserve and exchange it for currency. For the equal value of that note, they can get the paper money. They can get Federal Reserve notes. And so that law means, and we'll show a clip, show a picture of the act right here. That means that what's behind the fiat stuff we use, instead of it being gold, it is promissory notes. It is notes, which are securities, because they secure all the fiat. And there is no equity to it. There's no equity to it because the equity is paper. The equity is already a derivative. It's already a fiat thing. The promissory note that you use, that you write down, I promise to pay when you borrow money, is the security. It's the gold that secures the fiat. And the beauty of that system is that there's no way to run out of it, which was the crucial issue in 1933 after the stock market and the run on the banks, where, if you accept the relationship that all the currency that's out there is backed by some kind of gold security, some kind of equitable thing, when they pull that out of the bank, that sucks up all the currency in circulation, and businesses and banks and whatever can't function to the same profitable ability that they want to. And so, they made the people suffer for that. That's why the stock market crashed. Why there created this need, this demand for a new kind of money or some kind of economic relief. And so this New Deal, the FDR, the whole nation turned around in 1933 because of the brilliance of FDR, when in reality it was access to unlimited amounts of money. The government could then ask for and create as much money as they want to do anything they want. And so, that's when the fiat started. And the other aspect of that time and that date that goes undiscussed is that 2 months prior to the creation of Federal Reserve notes, 2 months prior to the United States Congress writing law establishing this fiat money, Hitler had just arrested a Rothschild's banker in January 1933. And Hitler had created a different kind of money, a money that wasn't backed by gold, wasn't backed by promises. It was backed by labor, by people's time and effort. That if you would simply do work, that equitable activity would be exchanged for equitable money. And prior to World War II, Germany had completely bounced back economically, simply by controlling their money system. So that's a lot to take in. If it's the first time you've heard that story, or the first time you've been exposed to what happened, why our money's fiat, it's a lot to digest, and I guarantee it'll take a little time, because effectively what I'm saying is that all the money we have and all the money that we use is only powerful because we believe in it. And all the people that have a lot of money, all the people that are hoarding the money, it's very critical to them that you have faith in the money too.
We can see that. I mean, I feel like that statement is really clear that the collective consciousness is holding that sphere or level of reality. I know that when I started to peel back the layers of this subject, it starts to get a little scary. Gosh, why would we want to do that? Well, what does that mean for me if this wasn't the system that we used? And how could I then get my things and provide for my family? Or what would life look like? Some pretty scary thoughts can come up when you start to digest this information. And when we look at, just for a moment, of how many systems and structures right now we're able to see and witness having some sort of fake nature to it, having some sort of illusion to that part of our reality and story, as we've seen kind of for most of this year, things coming out in the news that there's a lot of things happening in the world that we weren't privy to. Right. And that was really underground. And so it can feel like, okay, well, we've confronted some of these things but then the money too. And when I think about this on a grand scale, it makes sense to me in the way of, well, of course that's fake too. And that there's really not a part of our lives, our systems, our communities that weren't set up from this manipulative mastermind story. And the money is no different. And so as I started to peel the layers back, like I said, well, it makes sense that this part of our system is fake as well, is a story, is a derivative of the original. And so this might be a hard one. This might be a hard subject to digest, to fully comprehend, to then not freak out and think, well, what do we do now? And are we really like screwed, so to speak, in every aspect of our lives? No, I would say that this does give us an opportunity to learn really the intricate details of lawful money, and then how to move within these programs and systems in our most authentic way. And that includes letting go of the fake. And so I think on this subject, it really comes down to education and understanding, and the willingness to open up to the possibility that maybe the same crew of people who have been trading children and poisoning us through our food may also have put in this mechanism of fake money to really create that additional layer. And so, Ray, you have, for the last several years, have really become an expert in private express trusts. And within a private express trust, there is lawful money. And so it's important that I think our listeners understand you are an expert in this field and that your knowledge around these concepts is quite in depth. But then on top of that, how do we really start to... I know that there must be some of our listeners out there that are feeling like, I don't or I no longer want to support this government with the decisions that they're making on behalf of us citizens. And so I do think that that is the first crack of the door opening to have more people begin to walk through that doorway. And so I think for the first time in a long, long time, there is a mass majority of people who are tired of these wars, who are tired of the money that many of us go out and earn, then to support this really dark stuff. So if you can help us continue to unpack this and grapple with this seemingly heavy conversation.
Yeah, I would be happy to. I think the first thing, viewers and listeners should know is that there are options. Like, it is a wicked, awful thing that has happened. We are inundated with it. A lot of this stuff starts at the root, but it also kind of helps us maybe, kind of get pushed towards the light, get pushed towards the truth, to kind of remember how important certain things are that we may have lost touch with. But, the fiat money, it's the I don't know, beauty of it maybe is that it is two things. Okay. And when you live in a world of deception, you live in a world of fiat and a world of artificial, one thing that does happen is there starts to be definitions or uses for things in two different ways. Words sometimes all of a sudden now mean two different things. And so the money is one of those things. You can still use the Federal Reserve note that you still have in your pocket, that you carry around. You still can redeem that for lawful money. You can still use the lawful money mechanism of it. Again, you can volunteer to no longer use fiat fake money. Okay, now, again, if you accept the fact that we're in an artificial world, there is no method, form to fill out to get them to all of a sudden use this system that is for lawful money and for them to treat you like you're somehow different now. It's all outside of the system. It's all in your actions and what you do and what you say. For example, the power between your freedom when you have to talk to a police officer comes in your ability to say no. You have power and freedom when you can do that. If you can't do that, you do not have freedom and you do not have power. You will do what they want. Same thing with the money. If you constantly take what they are offering you and understand things the way they've told you, you're always going to be in it. This lawful money stuff and the stuff I'm talking about now, it is not backed by a lot of, established law or systems. But if you read the law and see what they're saying, this makes perfect sense. If you look at a dollar bill, let's pull one up maybe on the screen. Today, you'll see that there are two seals. There is a lawful money U.S. Treasury seal, usually green, and there is a black Federal Reserve Bank seal. And we'll show another image here of money that was prior to 1933, and you'll see that there is only one seal. There was only one seal on the money prior to 1933. So, the thing about seals, that's another thing a lot of people don't know much about, but Seals often give a sense of approval per a certain body, a certain organization will seal something. Back in the day, a king may have put a seal on their wheat for when they were trading it across seas or whatever, but a seal identifies what something is either belongs to or has been approved by. So when the money has 2 seals, that means you can use it in 2 different systems in 2 different ways. You can choose to not use the fiat monies. And if you would like some evidence behind that statement, because it's a big statement, it is in the code, actually. The banking code, Title 12. If you Google Title 12, paragraph 411, it also goes by 12 USC 411, it'll clearly say that Federal Reserve notes can be redeemed for lawful money upon demand at any bank. So you can use lawful money. There are some rules to it. Fiat money has this magical ability to grow on itself. You put it into account and add some interest magic to it. It all of a sudden gets bigger, like the Ewoks. Not the Ewoks, the Gremlins. You add a little water to them. And that's not natural, okay? That's the first kind of sign about the money. Money never really grows on itself. Gold doesn't grow on itself just because it exists or is in somebody's possession. And so, you can have a lawful money bank account. You can deposit your checks in anything you want into a bank account and redeem it for lawful money. Now, I do highly recommend you set up a private express trust and have a bank account owned by that trust and put your lawful money in there. And the reason for that gets into the legal personhood, which we're probably not going to try to get into too much here, but they're very directly tied. The fiat money, the fake money, is very directly tied to your fake person.
We'll do a separate episode on that, breaking down the legal person, because I do think that is an important thing to consider.
But just like the legal person, you don't have to use it. You don't have to be it. Okay? The simple fact that lawful money exists and your education and knowledge of lawful money and what I just explained is enough for you to start using it. Okay? And when you use lawful money, you are choosing to no longer use the fiat. And I'm sure you've heard the head of the IRS and even Congress say that paying income taxes is voluntary. Well, the tax payment is not voluntary, especially when you said you would pay it. But the use of the entire fake money is voluntary. And when you no longer use the fake money system, you no longer need to participate in the fake money taxes. And if you have the courage enough to write a letter to the IRS and tell them you are no longer going to use the fiat, you are going to redeem everything in lawful money per 12 USC 411, which you would have done since the day you knew the truth or the day you turned 18 and started collecting checks, you will have a strong footing to tell them to leave you alone forever, because the legal cannot forcefully penetrate the equitable. It can only do it when the equitable allows it. So once you are comfortably using lawful money and redeeming everything you make for lawful money, there are no fiat debts that they can really come after you for. At least not per the books. So that part is obviously a little bit more confusing. It's not something that can be easily explained, but it is something that once you start seeking and want to know the truth about the money, the information's out there, and what to do about it, it can be done, but it will not be handed to you. It will not be given. You are going to have to change your ways in probably a very significant manner to live the lawful life, be on the side of the lawful. There's one little story, little anecdote I kind of want to share that I think would help people really understand how the Federal Reserve works.
Let's hear it.
And the big deception, again, this ties into the question of equity, and the fact that we don't have equitable courts means we can't ask the equitable question. We can't ask the equitable question about the money. There isn't a court that will permit it, because the courts are all a artificial fiat nature. They cannot ask the equitable question. So the equitable source to the money is never asked, and therefore never answered. But if you simply recognize that the note, when you sign it in the hands of a bank, turns into currency, then at the end of the day, the absolute truth, what can be proven, is that your signature is the lawful money. You create the money. The banks lie about it. That promissory note is the thing. Okay? When you get foreclosed on, they don't foreclose on because you didn't honor the note. They foreclose on a different document, the deed of trust. But to understand how important your note is, imagine that the Federal Reserve and the entire money system in America, just imagine with me for a second, that the only way to get any money was to sell a car. And that wealthy folks would just simply collect more and more cars. And people that had a lot of cars were the ones that were considered the wealthiest. And yet, they still needed currency to buy stuff. You couldn't exchange a car for a dinner or a bag of groceries. But if you got the paper stuff, you could do all that. And so if you got a lot of cars, you don't have a whole lot to worry about. But if you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of cars and you need some currency to do something, you do what everybody does, and you take your car to the Federal Reserve car dealership, a place that will take your car, hold on to it, and if they can sell it to somebody, they'll give you some of the money. Well, the guys have worked out a deal where you get most of it. But until then, that car stays with the bank. And so, again, if you got lots of cars, you don't got a problem. Let's say you got one car and you're trying to sell this one car for another car. And so you desperately need the money from this sale, but more importantly, you need a ride. You need a car. Well, you go back to that bank and you say, can I have my car back so I can drive around and do some other stuff because you're not selling it? You're just holding it. Well, what the Federal Reserve car dealership does is they would rent it back to you. They would allow you to pay money to use your car. And so when you borrow money for anything at any bank and you give a note, that's exactly what happens. They're holding on to these notes because they've determined that these notes are the securities, and that is the value that a bank has, is how many notes is it holding. And even though you gave the note to them in the first place, they're going to kind of pretend like that wasn't the thing. And they're going to basically give you back some money as long as you pay it back plus a little fee. All under the presumption that you didn't give them something in the first place. And what makes this thing worse was what makes the corruption and the involvement with the United States apparent, and that it's not just the Federal Reserve, is that the Supreme Court has ruled, and it is a fact, that banks cannot ever loan out their money to somebody. They've never taken their assets and extended it to a third party. The only thing banks have ever done is taken somebody else's asset, held on to it, and given them something back in return. Every single time. Unsecured loans is an illusion. It is a lie. They got the note already. In fact, the unsecured loan is the most honest type of loan, because a secured loan simply means that they've tricked you into giving up some of your equitable thing if they don't get everything they want. And so it's not secured, it's extorted. And yeah, so like we think that our money is equitable. Why? Because it works, right? I mean, people accept it. If I don't pay it something back, I get punished. People are constantly trying to collect it. Everything has a money value to it, as a dollar currency interpretation.
And it is also something that permeates every corner of our lives, right? To eat, that costs money. to have a roof over your head costs money, to use water costs money, electricity, for a car to get to the job where you might make more money costs money to get there, costs money to have a family, to travel, to do all of the things for us to move around and live life.
Right.
And so it really permeates every single corner. It is deeply embedded in our nervous system. It is deeply embedded in the epigenetics of our lineage, depending on what that looks like for generations of money from where you came from. And I'm curious or what your opinion might be on knowing this information, allowing us to kind of see the truth. Does that make it easier for us to build a different way? Is there a different way to build our lives? Is there a way out of this fiat, or is lawful money the answer? Is lawful money the answer until we can build a new system?
Well, look at it this way. Look at the way the law is written, and I think it's really important for people to understand that. Not just the way things go and what the banks do, but what is actually in the law. Is like I just said, your note, your promissory note gets turned into the currency. Equitably speaking, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to do that yourself. There's no reason you shouldn't go straight to the Federal Reserve window yourself, give them a note, and get the currency. And please sit back and imagine what kind of world that would be.
Wow, that would be.
Where anytime we needed something, we could just go get the currency to buy it. And then you would ask yourself, well, then nobody would ever work. Why would anybody ever work if they could just get the money every time they asked? And I said, I think people would still work. But we would have a system in a world where people would only work and do the things that they wanted to do.
Exactly.
So,
which sounds like a beautiful place to be.
And all this stuff where we have to do it. We have to make things this way. We have to let these corporations be the friggin' cunts that they are and accept all this crap and hustling and slaving for the things we want. Taking these awful jobs that eat our soul and are awful to other people just because they're the most convenient way of getting what we desperately need.
Yeah, let's just take a moment. I think it's a powerful thing to take a moment here and have our listeners just envision, what would you do with your life, with your community, with your family, if you could go and get any money that you wanted to be able to maybe build the thing that you've been dreaming about, whether that only serves you or the community around you? Would that look like sharing in that abundance with those around you?
The hoarding of money would not be as cool anymore.
Definitely not.
You know?
Because we could all do it, I suppose, if we wanted to.
Exactly. It would be more the people that could do, the people that could communicate, the people that could make things happen, that could, talk to other people and serve their close community would be the ones that had the most power because they're the most equitable, because they can make the most happen.
Think about how many collaborations could be possible if funds were just available.
Well, think about that business, that idea you've had your whole life that you've wanted to do, that little shop, that new thing that you think you could probably do a little cooler or a little better, or just to do it, just to have that life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe you want to own a pawn shop and just pawn junk the rest of your life. Maybe that's your calling. Whatever. You don't need any permission to do it. You need permission with the fiat, you know, when you got to follow their rules. But once you pull yourself out of that, you can do whatever you want in lawful money. If we all were using lawful money in our accounts, there would be no rules. There would be no limitations on what we would do. The market wouldn't matter.
I know.
We could just do the good things that people need.
Yeah.
You know, but that's just the power of story. It's the power of the artificial invasion of fiat money, fiat rules, fiat movies and stories. Is that they work. They captivate us. They keep us from our true, authentic self.
They do captivate us.
So I guess, you know, if you understand this, what I said was the truth, and you look it up at the Federal Reserve Act and see that your note is the security, it's the gold, feel free to go talk to a bank and ask them about it.
We'd love to know if you
go ask for a loan from your friendly neighborhood buddy bank, and then ask them whose money are they even lending to you. See if they say it's theirs. If they do, say, well, you know, the law says you guys can't loan out your money. What I think is happening is I'm giving you a note that's the real money, and then you're just going to convert it for me. But for some reason you don't. For some reason you say, I have to have a credit score. For some reason you say that I have to pay fiat debts with a good frequency and repetition for you to effectively loan me what is mine. Okay? The banks are keeping you from what's already yours. Anytime you get denied a loan, you have an argument to sue them. Because they're not giving you their stuff. They're keeping you from your stuff. There is no state that allows for credit scores, that enforces credit scores. It is just a thing that happens that banks used in the story to keep you from what is lawfully yours. So yeah, I think when you digest that, it may get real dark. It is very uncomfortable to see something that is so impermeated into our existence, into everything we do, to everything we decide and want to do, is a fake creation. It is an artificial energy mechanism that we have let, you know, absorb us. It's a parasite, you know? It gets in, it functions, it looks like it's working, and the next thing you know, we're all sick, and we can't seem to get the things we want, and the money doesn't really seem to work. So, yeah, I think that's about what I got on lawful money. What you can do, I mean, I'm in the business of private express trust. Anybody can create a private express trust. Anybody can have a lawful money bank account. Anybody can start using and redeeming everything they make in lawful money. It is not all rainbows and unicorns, milk and honey. It is a little bit more difficult. It does kind of change things. You got to realize that the banking system is not really on your side, and they may not really want you to use lawful money. Banks or businesses or people or whatever aren't going to really see it, and that's fine. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is that, it's not like gold where only so many people are going to take gold. Everybody's going to take cash, and you can make it in any possible way you want. Just redeem it on your side. Tell the IRS to pound sand. And, it's a spiritual change too. I mean, in my experience, everything that I've learned and done and all these shifts, like when you get farther and farther away from the artificial, you get farther and farther away from the fiat, and you start to get into what's equitable and real, and you let those things grow and you feed those things in your life, it will change your experience. Things will become more clear. You will be much more aligned with your truth, simply for not going along with the fake money story. And at the same time, that does kind of make it difficult, harder too. Living in a system of fake money and then going to something real will kind of wear you out. It'll all of a sudden get harder. Your body will realize how much time it wasted on artificial endeavors. That's what I got.
To our listeners, thanks again or our new listeners, for joining us today and taking a moment to contemplate this subject, contemplate if you're able to see it, if you've become aware before listening to this conversation. And we'd like to know in the comments. Reach out. Let us know if you have been living your life with lawful money, if you or your communities have been discussing this and witnessing it and recognizing that in order for us to build a new world, it's taking a lot of acceptance on the part of living beings to recognize what is artificial in all of our systems. And so we're interested to hear who out there in the world is no longer paying taxes, who is working to take their power back and understand this subject matter and money. Ray, what do you have for our listeners?
Yeah, final thought is, see the equity of life. See how evasive not paying attention to your money is, or the government, or the system, or the laws. Do some reading and some research. I think understand what's really going on. At least get that foundation that accepting the way things are and what somebody tells you, that's how it is. We can't really kind of accept that, and having money we have to borrow is kind of silly. But thank you for listening and watching. I hope you got a lot out of it.
Remember that as we close this episode out, just a lasting thought with each and every one of you. You are worth more than any money in the world could ever create.
You're the equity, the real equity.
And the universe is here to give us all the abundance we can experience. And know that you are worth everything you've ever imagined, relating to money, around money, or not with money. And we wish for all of our listeners and all living beings on earth to see their true worth, step into their authentic power, and work from a space of their own equity.
Housh, housh.
Thanks for tuning in. This is Lindsey Lamb.
I'm Raymundo.
This is Sovereign Space Podcast. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Peace.
The power's always been in the people. Don't forget it.